Drop it. Thank you. So I hope you all had a super fantastic sparkling day. First of all, I have to apologize for the sudden cut-off last night. Anzac Day to me has always been, it's anything to do with military, first responders, just even like things like walking along the wall in the War Memorial in DC is enough to bring up a lot of emotions for me. Even if I don't know anybody on the wall, it's just seeing all of those names and what they represented. And so for me, Anzac Day is very much like that. Memorial Day, same thing. You'll see me a bucket of emotions on Memorial Day as well. So I apologize for the sudden cutoff last night. I couldn't deal with the emotions that were rising up at the time, and I just had to get offline and go and do what I needed to do. And the other reason that it got a little emotional was because of what today represents. So today is my in-laws, if they were still around, today would be their 75th wedding anniversary. So happy heavenly 75th wedding anniversary to my in-laws. And today is also a very important day in my life as well, because it was on this day 22 years ago that my husband took me for a walk. We decided to go out for dinner that night, and so we went to Old Town Alexandria in Virginia there. And he said, let's go for a walk before we go to dinner. I went, okay. So we go walking through Old Town there, and we end up at this park. It's the Waterfront Park there next to the Torpedo Factory Art Gallery. And I always called it Torpedo Park. Because it's right next door to the torpedo factory. And so we're walking along there, and he said, let's just sit on this bench. And I went, okay. So we sit on the bench, and he's sitting on my left side, and he turns, and we're just sitting there, and we're just watching what's going on. And there's people playing, and kids running around, people riding bikes, and all that sort of stuff. And he suddenly says to me, he says, close your eyes. And I'm like, why? He says, just close your eyes. So I closed my eyes. He says, now tell me what you can hear. I was like thinking, well, this is weird. So and at that point, this plane comes flying overhead to land at Reagan National, because we're on the flight path. We're on the flight path, the approach and the takeoff path into Reagan National. And so I said, well, there's definitely a plane going overhead. And then I could hear, and so I tuned into what I could hear, and I could hear people riding along on a bike, because you could hear the wheels on the gravel paths that were there. And there were kids running around, so I could hear their noise. I said, there's people over there, and I was like pointing with my hand, there's people over there having a picnic, family. There's these people over here just ridden past on their bike. And I was describing all the noises around me, and he goes, well, there's one thing you haven't heard. And I'm like, what? And I'm like going through my head. I said, there was the plane, there was the bikes, there was I still got my eyes closed at this point. I'm going, there's the plane, there was the bikes, there's the kids playing, there's the people talking, there's walking. And I'm like running through the list of everything I'm seeing, going, I didn't miss anything. And all of a sudden he picks up my left hand, and he says to me, you haven't heard me say, I love you, will you marry me? And as he said that, he slipped. I felt something slipping onto my left hand, and that was his proposal to me. So of course he got a big, very big yes. And it was quite a magical. It was a magical moment. And then after it kind of settled in a little bit, cried a little. We then went for a walk to the local Irish pub, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it. It was one, and then they moved it. But we went in there, had fish and chips for dinner. And it was a Saturday, I think it was a Saturday night. I don't remember, but the guy was up there who owned the pub, and he was dressed as a unicorn, and they were singing the unicorn song. I remember that one vividly. I can't remember tell you any of the other Irish songs that were played, but I can tell you about that one, because the guy's up there in this moth-eaten unicorn outfit headpiece, and they're singing the unicorn song. That's all. The food was pretty good too. But yeah, so it was 22 years ago today that Brad proposed. So that's why the 25th of April is such an emotional day for me. You've got Anzac Day, remembering all of those and the sacrifices that they have made, because Anzac is our equivalent to the Americans' Memorial Day. So remember all of those that died in combat. And it used to be just remembering those that had invaded Gallipoli back in 1915. But over the years, it's sort of transformed into those that died in any war, conflicts, peacekeeping operations, just remembering those that have served and died, paid the ultimate sacrifices they served for the country. So that's our Memorial Day. So it was high emotions. And I think Anzac Day hit me a little harder this year, It hit me hard pretty much last year too, because January last year I was in New Zealand I've been in New Zealand for Christmas for 2018, and it was New Year's Day, and we went down to Te Papa, which is the National Museum in New Zealand, and they had the Gallipoli exhibit on, and it had been going for like 5 years at that point, and I believe it's still going, but it was just an incredible, and I have never seen an exhibit like it before. It took you through the entire 8-month campaign that they had. They had these rooms where they had these larger-than-life statues in there that were so lifelike. The detail on these statues was incredible, and each statue was, you would then hear that person's story through speakers in that room. There'd be dark room, spotlight on the statues. The statues would be lit up. To give you some idea on how incredible the detail and everything was, they were all done by Peter Jackson's workshop, to give you some idea of the quality of work that was behind this. But they had done this entire display in there, and on the website there was a picture of a woman standing in front of one of the statues, and she's eye level with this guy's nose, and he's sitting. To give you some idea on the size of these things. They're like 3 times the size or something. And there was just, and hearing their stories, like you see one guy having his last meal because he'd been accused of treason, and he was about to be executed, but he got a stay of execution because he had fallen asleep at his post, but he had just come out of hospital, and they listed the illnesses that he had, and he had just come out of hospital, and they put him straight onto at this watch post, and he had fallen asleep there, so he got a stay of execution. There was another one with a nurse who was on one of the ships, the hospital ships that went over there, and she had been writing to her brother who was in Gallipoli, and when she got over there, all the soldiers and stuff that came on, she kept asking about her brother, and then while she was on the ship there off the coast there where they were bringing all the injured and stuff, she got her stack of letters were returned to her, and stamped on it was "killed in action, returned to sender," and that's how she found out that her brother had passed away, had been killed in action. Her parents, of course, would have known, because they would have found out before she even got to the area, because she was on the ship for 4 months, and so she wouldn't have heard anything. You're talking 1915. It took them 4 months to get from New Zealand over to the Black Sea, over to Gallipoli. So there was such moving stories, and hearing those stories and knowing that there were actual people there with them, and you're hearing their stories and stuff, it just brought it home a lot more, made it a lot more real. So yesterday, it all slammed into me yesterday. So I apologize for the sudden cut off yesterday, but I had to go deal with myself, so I could come back and be super fantastic and sparkling for you guys. But there are times that you're vulnerable, which is why one of my mindset thing today was about being vulnerable. Know yourself enough that you can be vulnerable in a safe space. And if you're not in a safe space, like for example, the first time I did a cruise after Brad passed, he went in September. The following May I was on a cruise ship, and standing and doing the safety drill, and there's, I don't know, 200 people in the room, 300 people, whatever it was, all couples. I was on a celebrity ship, all couples standing around me. They're holding hands, they've got their arms around each other, some of them were kissing, you could tell the honeymooners, and I'm standing there by myself in the middle of this crowd, and it suddenly slammed, and I mean slammed, into me that this was my life now, that I was alone and this was my life now. And I remember just wanting to get down on the floor and just curl up and just let loose. But it was not a safe space for me to do that. I mean, we're about to have a safety drill and you have a meltdown. Not a good place to do a meltdown. And so I had the longest 40 minutes of my life and had to wait until I got back to my cabin. And once I got back to my cabin, I was allowed to be vulnerable with myself at that point. So, know yourself, know your emotions, know when you feel vulnerable, when you don't feel vulnerable, and allow yourself that time to be vulnerable. So last night I had my vulnerable moments. Your business thing for today, Followup. I got to attend a phenomenal workshop today, Followup Riches. We had Casey and Bajal moderating, facilitating the workshop. Incredible, like tons and tons and tons of golden nuggets in that thing. And it was a hands-on thing. There was a workbook they had sent out to us to print off. They had worksheets for us that they gave us time to fill in as we were going along. I've got some processes written out for my genealogy business, which is now up and running. So it was really good to be able to actually put processes in place on a brand new business. So that was kind of cool. I kind of sort of had a process in place, but when I got there, I was sort of like, okay, I need to, unfortunately I did it in pencil because I was erasing a lot and going, no, that needs to be step 3. Step 2 needs to be this. No, hang on, step 2 is not right. That's step 2 should be step 4. And, you know, so it was kind of fun doing that. And so got my project board redone yesterday, and there's space on there for me to put the projects up there that I now need to do for the processes, because within each process you've got steps, and some steps are going to require a project to set that step up so it can then flow seamlessly through the process. So yes, I got Followup Riches. That was amazing. It was awesome. And then after that, I went over and picked up my friend Vicky, and we've both had enough. We've honestly both had enough of stay in place. We've been both. I mean, she's been here longer than I have. We've both been self-isolating ourselves every day, and we do our social distancing when I go over there each morning with Zeffie, and Zeffie's our guide. You know, she gets in between us, and her leash is 6 foot plus whatever bit's the other end of the leash. So she basically stands close enough that Zeffie can come up to her and she can bend down and scratch Zeffie. So we decided, we've had enough. So we went down to Chick-fil-A's just down the road there. So we went through the drive-through and got dinner, and we went and sat in Lowe's. Is right there as well, so we went and sat in their parking lot and had dinner at our Chick-fil-A and came back to the campground. It was just really nice to get out of the campground, even if it was only for like 30-45 minutes. I think it was like 45 minutes, almost an hour, and just to sit and talk with somebody while you had a meal. It was just really nice to do that. And then we got back, and we just got back in from a walk, and while we're on a walk down by the restrooms there, they got a trash can, so I was going over to use the trash can, and there was this gentleman standing there, and he had Crazy Horse Memorial on his cap. I kind of sort of knew what it was, but wasn't exactly sure, so I asked him about it. And boy, I did not know what I was doing when I asked him about Crazy Horse Memorial. This guy and his wife actually spent a season up there in South Dakota, actually working at the park, being at the one of them worked on the gate and the other one worked in the welcome center. Because the way he started going with his information, I looked at him and I said, were you one of the tour guides there? And his wife came out and she's sort of like, oh no, what are you doing? And he sort of says, she asked about the hat. So obviously it's one of his favorite topics to talk about, because when she said, what are you doing? He just points to me and goes, she asked about my hat. I said, I did. I asked him about the hat. And she's like, oh, you don't know what you've done. I said, was he a tour guide there? She said he worked in the welcome center and I worked on the gate for a whole season. So got to hear the story behind the Crazy Horse Memorial, how huge it's going to be, how it's going to be the largest hand-carved structure, and all of this, and how Mount Rushmore is going to fit on the head and the hair of the Indian warrior that's up there on the. It was kind of fascinating. And then they had to go, so got to meet them and see some of the pictures that he had taken over the time, and got to find out that the white lines that outline where they're going to be carving and everything, the white painted lines are 6 feet wide, and I'm like, jeepers, my husband was 6'5". So it gives you some idea. They're wide lines, and he had these photographs there, and he was going, now this here's carved for this reason, and this here, and there's this little tunnel here so they can get around the back of the sculpture, and it's 3 feet high, and the arm's going to be 11 feet high, and 11 stories high, and I'm sort of like, oh my gosh, this thing is massive. So I can't wait. It's actually on my list of things to do along with Mount Rushmore, to go and see the Crazy Horse Memorial. And they said if you can spend at least one day at the park, it'll be well worth your time. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm sort of like, well, can I take Zeffie in? And they said, well, she's a service dog. Yeah, she can go. And I said, no, she's not a service dog. I said, she's just a puppy in training. So if I can get her certified as a service dog before then yes, she would be welcome. Otherwise, she'll be staying back at the camping ground in the air conditioning with her food and her water, while I go check out the park. But it's been overall it's been a really, really good day. So that was the follow-up. I totally forgot to ask, how did you get on with your fun challenge, which was backyard games indoors? So for those of you that can't get out into the backyard and play, or the front yard and play the outdoor games, hang on, what are you doing? Crazy dog, you crazy? She wants to play. Go run. Go run. Coco. There she goes. Jump up on the bed. We're going to have an unmade bed in a few seconds. Oh. This is Crazy Dog. Up on the bed, turn around, run back down. There we go. Her nails on my feet are just hilarious. Oh, that hurts. Okay. She's obviously got something trapped underneath the chair that she's trying to get to. What you doing? Go get some water. So there's my evening for you. Ow. Okay, we'll settle down now. Hey, come here. Come front. Good girl. Nope. We're back to crazy running again. Anyway, I got to go deal with a crazy dog because she obviously wants to play, but she won't bring me her toy so I can throw it for her. Go get your ball. Where's your ball? Go get your ball. Go on. Where's your ball? We're still learning the names of our toys. Oh, the ball's underneath the chair. I got to go crawling under the chair to get her ball for her because she's obviously pushed it too far back where she can't get it. Oh, she's put a plastic bag in. Where did that come from? So, hope you guys have a super fantastic sparkling evening. We will catch you tomorrow morning with your challenges for tomorrow. Until then, like I said, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. I'm going to go deal with Crazy Dog. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. Hei konera.